Welcome back to the Films on Tap podcast, a very special episode after God knows how long since we've recorded last. But I think based on the flurry of movies that we all saw in the past, 3 weeks, when everything good finally came out, we felt compelled to huddle up as a crew. And A, we haven't seen each other in a while. And B, talk about some of the really entertaining stuff that we've seen this year. And congratulations are in order. We've had 2 weddings since the last time we recorded. So, Andrew, congratulations. Kevin,
thank you, Chris.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You've now joined the club, as it were. Tim's already been there, done that.
Yeah, we've been there. I'm a 2-time MVP.
Yeah.
I'm a 2-time
rookie of the year over here. I'll take it.
Well, congratulations, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it was.
Thank you, fellas. Thank you.
A blast and an honor to be able to see you guys exchange your vows, and it just. I'm very happy for both of you that you've found your partners for life now.
For life for now, you mean, right? Yeah.
Until 2025.
No, guys, you're stuck.
We're stuck. Okay, got it.
That's it, man.
By the way, did you know, Chris and Tim, that the location that my wife and I had our wedding is where they shot the wedding scene in Wolf of Wall Street?
I did not know that.
I did not know that, but it's now that I try to think
when
back
you see
on that,
you think about Leo and Margot Robbie, and it's like the Bahamas, and it's the beach platform, and Scorsese made that look like the Bahamas. You can tell what was the convincing line for me to be like, let's pick here. It was like, oh, Scorsese and Leo shot a movie here. I absolutely want to get married here.
Yeah. I swear, when I was watching you guys, it felt just like I was watching the movie.
Yeah, of course. That's cinematic. It was not nowhere near as expensive, but it was close. So I'll tell you that.
You hoity-toity motherfucker. Talk to me when your laundry room is made from the set of fucking Black Rain.
Black Rain. A classic.
All back.
Way back. So obviously, we're gonna start off with talking about our top 10 films of the year. We're going to go around the table like we do. Andrew is going to share with us how he tends to do lists on the Knicks Film School podcast, and then we'll obviously follow that lead. So I'm excited to talk about those movies, and then we'll talk about some honorable mentions, some blind spots, and just some general topics or things that happened this year that were film or film adjacent. Because it was a pretty happening year, and it's one of the reasons we're here talking with you guys right now. So, Andrew, do you want to explain kind of the rules or how we're going to kick off? Who starts?
Yeah, I don't want to fully hijack the list show, but it's different with sports, obviously, because
please steer us in the right direction. You're way better at this.
If you got it. The old shows, they go off in all sorts of wrong directions. So
the intent of what I wanted to say up top was more, and why it's different with the sports list that we do over at my other gig, is that, like, with sports, you have statistics that you can factor into your lists, and at times it really is not as objective as it could possibly be. Like, it's really difficult to argue that one player is better than another when the data is overwhelming. Whereas with movies, like, what your number 1 and my number 50 could potentially be the same movie, and that's like completely fine. I think what I wanted to specify for at least how I did my list is, like, is it just like objectively what were the 5 best movies I saw this year? What were my favorite movies this year? So that, like, I mean, I do a lot with my Letterboxd rankings, and it's like there may be a movie that I have ranked in my top 10 that is technically a lower score than something that's below it, because this was shooting to be a 7, but I enjoyed all 7 of it, whereas this other thing, I kind of got bored, but, like, I can't say it was bad, so I'd probably rank it an 8. And if that's more what I wanted to go to. Like, are we doing our top 10 favorites, top 10 best? Is it a mix of both? And
I mean,
you know,
yeah, that's a good point. I think if a really good movie, one of the things that it will tend to have is watchability. Of course, there are objectively the movies that are insanely brilliant that you never want to see again, right? And sometimes those are peppered in our lists. But when I look at my list and I think about kind of how I crafted it or how the movies fell, most of them I've seen more than once. And most of them, I think, I think I've demonstrated in the past, and probably to a fault, that things hit me in the feels more than they maybe do in the head. Like, I have movies that I loved, and then Kevin's like, yeah, but did you see like how like insane that logic gap was? And then I'm like, oh yeah, I still love that movie.
yeah.
So I would say mine are the ones that I think are the best that I saw this year, that I enjoyed the most. And, you know, they're not all going to be Variety's top 10 best movies of the year type list. You know, they're going to have some popular or not so popular, but at least my picks. But yeah, it's a mix for me.
It's funny you say watchability. Rewatchability absolutely factors into my list making. And I think, like, just to, not to give away my list, but there's like two that I've seen, like I went out and made the effort to see 3 times. Then there's a couple that I saw twice that informed the next part of my list. And then there's like, and it's the funny part doing a top 10. I'm sitting here right now. I don't have a solid 9 and 10 because from 9 to like 16 could be interchangeable. So that's where I'm interested to see how our lists get created throughout the time. Do you
think that's because of the strike? Like, because I feel like this year was kind of held up a lot. Like, there wasn't much that, I don't know, even 10. I was kind of like meh on most of the shit that came out this year.
Okay, the strike plays a part in it. I also think the release schedule that is beyond outdated at this point plays a lot, because as Chris mentioned before, if you're trying to watch 10, 15 movies in about 3 weeks' time, you might enjoy it, but you're really not giving it a chance to stand out from the rest. That's also a huge issue. Just if 2020 taught us nothing, we can do streaming. I don't need to go out to see every movie on my list. There's a couple, obviously, the big, something.
And I'll make the effort on the ones that are huge, exactly, right? Yes.
But even then, put it at home. I'll watch it at home.
True. Or maybe for the second time to reinforce or see, does this also work on a smaller scale?
For some of those movies where it got held up, and try not to say too much because we're going to get to it in a little bit, to where I had to wait, that kind of made me angry at the movie, to be quite honest with you. And like, why am I in this holding pattern that I now have to jump through fucking hoops to watch a movie that's been out for a month other places?
You mean you'd rather stream Snoop Dogg's Little Giants movie than go see it on the big screen?
I would underdog myself in the back of the fucking head.
Unfortunately, Tim, that movie isn't eligible because it is a 2024 release. So we can bring that up next year when we do top 10 or bottom 5 of 2024. I will say, to your point about this, we could do streaming, Kev. I think that was like the reason for the strike. That people recognized, and specifically both of these guilds recognized the like benefit of people not wanting to go to the theater as much for the smaller movies, and the studios recognized it during COVID and were like, well, we just won't pay you for the stuff that ends up on streaming. Hence why, I mean, to Tim's point, maybe there was a break in the schedule. The tough part for me is I don't know what got pushed that I necessarily would have put on my, like, maybe Dune makes it into my top 10, but it honestly speaks to like best versus favorite. Was like, I admired Dune for the accomplishment that it was. I was so bored
Were you really?
the sand. There's so much sand. There's so much sand. Like, I recognize the spectacle of it, and I enjoy Villeneuve's.
Andrew, more of a Hoth guy.
It felt very 2049, where it's like, okay, there's clearly something brilliant being built in front of me. It'd be like if the Brooklyn Bridge was being built in front of me. It's like, oh my God, that's amazing. It's a bridge at the end. Like,
Yeah.
Like, so that's how I respond to art like that.
Yeah,
you know?
I gauge it as Kevin and I napped together during 2049, and I actually stayed awake.
There you go. So did you guys were meh on 2023, or was it a good movie year once you saw the stuff that came out after the holidays?
It was like Megan Thee Stallion, back heavy.
It was.
It was very backloaded, and I think it's because of the strike.
So I think
I said it limped to the end of the year. I didn't know where you're going with that.
No.
Oh boy. So I did a top 10 show with Sam and Brian on the Red River podcast. Shout out to those guys. And at the time, most of the movies that are on my current top 10 had probably not been released yet, or I hadn't seen. So I have 5 movies on my current top 10 that were not on the top 10 that I did on that show. And that really just speaks to how backloaded this year was. It was ridiculous. They got to do a better job. You know, it used to be September. Now it's fucking December where they cram every fucking release that is going to end up being an Oscar-worthy
You'll get
type
limited release, maybe like December 12th, around that time.
Yeah.
And then you'll have everything bang, bang, bang. And then it's all of a sudden, this movie that came out for some people probably in June, or should have, it's coming out January 29th.
But Kevin, you said it, limited release. Like, this stuff does come out late November, early December to 4 theaters. And I'm lucky that I live in New York and I live close to the city. So Lincoln Center is like a 20, 25 minute train ride away. But to the country that may want to see these movies, you know, it's a little more difficult.
Why do you gotta wait till, like, the only movie that should have opened on December 25th was Silent Night. That was it.
Was that also a last year movie, or was that a this year movie?
No, there was
Violent Night from last year.
Violent Night.
And there was also another Silent Night with Keira Knightley, which is a completely different movie about you know, the government and the onslaught of the coming plague and what would you do as a family. This one was John Woo. I wonder if there were flying doves in it. They probably were. I didn't see it, but I'm pretty sure there were some doves flying when a gunshot goes off.
Pigeon, possibly.
Oh God!
Joel Kinnaman went from being like,
how many times can what's his face? What's his name? Joel
Kinnaman.
Yeah, Kinnaman. How many times can he get shot and not go down?
Apparently, as many times as the characters in the Scream franchise in the last 2 movies can get stabbed and not die.
That was ridiculous. That was ridiculous. When we get stabbed by multiple Scream, multiple.
No. My man is kneeling down, just getting.
Yeah.
Like, run! Don't worry about me.
Run away! Save yourself! I'll be fine.
So Tara and she hadn't seen it. I took Connor and Andrew to see that in the movie theater, and the opening scene was awesome because it was a nice sort of switch up from what you normally get from the opening. And it was a little brutal, so I was like, oh boy. But thankfully, like, it was dumb enough that the kids loved it. But so that scene happens at the movie theater with the brother Chad. He gets stabbed an insane amount of times and then gets carted out still alive. I then went back and rewatched Scream 5 because I hadn't watched it in a while and realized that motherfucker got the shit stabbed out of him at the end of that movie too.
And
like,
that
how many times?
More holes than an Afghan.
Yeah, like that one he got stabbed like maybe 6 times.
It was kind of, but still, he should have died in that.
Right.
So in 6 is like, come on now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure if you slow-mo it, they hit every major organ, and he's like, nah, I'm good.
He got decimated. Courtney Cox, she should have been dead too.
I was surprised they didn't, because of where she was in the franchise. Like,
yeah, and Julie in 5, you figure her in 6, but
Yeah.
Nope.
So Scream
Nobody
6
died.
did not make any of our lists, I'm assuming.
It did not.
It made a list.
Made a list. Okay.
Yeah.
It was in Sam's top 10.
Okay.
But it was. But
I wondered if it was a horror list or not. I do like that movie. It's just the
I
stakes-
enjoy the hell out of it. It
the
really
stakes
is
are
entertaining.
non-existent. Like
Well,
non-existent.
please tell me it was at least the upper part of 10.
No, I'm pretty sure it was high up. But like that ladder scene where they're crawling across and the girl hits her head after she falls on the side of the garbage dumpster, that was amazing. Like there's so many cool moments like that in that movie. But yeah, there's no stakes.
Judgment Night.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yes.
When that happened, like I've seen this before. It was a great scene, but it was like, no.
I don't think Judgment Night gets the credit it should get because it's overseen by the album.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
It's not a bad movie.
Sure.
if I'm gonna
You're
reach
wrong.
for an Estevez pick, it's gonna be Men at Work.
I mean, clearly it's always been at work.
Knock the fuck out. Estevez is the fucking reach for Estevez movie.
It's always going to be Men at Work. It's got Dean Cameron, for Christ's sakes. It's always Men at Work. Stop it.
All right.
So is this where I need to keep things on the rail?
Yeah,
I guess so, yeah. We'll go off on an Estevez catalog discussion.
We literally reviewed Scream 6 at one point, so we're already off the rails at this point. So what I'm going to do is decide the draft order, if it's okay with you. The way we do things over with the fine folks over at Nick's Film School, whenever we do a draft or a list show to decide who goes first, we do high card draw. So I have a deck of cards here. We'll just go in order and self-explanatory. Chris, we'll do you first. I'm gonna shuffle. Hope you heard that. Then your card is a 10. Okay. Then we go to
All right, big money.
Tim. We'll do one more shuffle. And then
Big money, big money.
no whammies. Stop. A jack.
Ooh,
Jack.
Oh. Hey.
There are more stakes on the high card draw in Nick's School. It's usually a draft that we do. So, like, we did a draft of like the all 1990s team. So whoever got the first pick won the draft. You know. Anyway, because of
Makes
course you
sense.
had to take Karl Malone first overall.
Oh, of course.
Kevin, your card is a 2. Okay.
Not
ready to go last,
alone,
sir.
but
Not bad.
There we go.
he likes
And then-
13.
Kevin Strath and Sam Bowie.
With the 2 pick.
At
Exactly.
the time, that was not a bad pick.
Yes.
Hindsight being 2020.
That's usually what we do with drafts. Okay, and then my card is a 4. Okay, so I'll go third. Tim, you're gonna go first, then Chris, then Kevin, then me. So we'll just do this. Adjust the screen that way.
Oh, cool. Oh, you
Yeah.
can do that. Sweet.
Yep. Shout out to the fine folks at StreamYard. Please sponsor Nick's Film School. Okay.
All right.
Tim, you're first. Top 10
Let's
of
do it.
You did there,
2023.
Andrew.
Let's do it. So my first pick at number 10 is
Tim looks like he's
Haunting in
reading a
Venice.
wedding speech off of his phone.
I am.
I was thinking it.
Yes, I love you, your grandson Frank.
There you go.
A Haunting in Venice.
Ah, okay.
I had to reach for this one, but I actually did like it. It is, I guess, a fan fiction. Would you say, Agatha Christie?
Is it a
'Cause it's got-
mashup of a couple of her stories? Is that what it is?
I
or-
think it is, or maybe it was one of the short stories. I'm not 100% sure, but like, way better of a follow up to Midnight on the Orient Express,
And
right?
then Death on the Nile, he also didn't he, Brana? Didn't he?
Yeah.
Hasn't he done like the trilogy of
Of
Agatha
the
Christie's?
Agatha Christie. Yeah.
The trailer looked
Um,
awesome. I full disclosure, I didn't see it, but it looked
I
cool.
won't go into it aside to say that the performances are very good as far as the location and the it's a very creepy story. It's more creepy than it is, who done it. But he's great as Hercule Poirot. That's what's his name?
Brana.
Uh,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Kenneth
right.
Branagh.
And Brown.
Yeah.
It looked interesting to me in the preview because it looked like he might have been struggling with the idea of whether or not this was something that he could empirically solve, or was there actually something supernatural going on.
And you never really get a sense, like if it feels a little like it could be both the whole time. But I really enjoyed the wrap up. The performances, like I said, are fantastic. And if you get a chance, stream it. I think it's streaming now. I feel like I just gave that the Chris Farley show fucking send up.
I watched the Jeff Daniels episode earlier.
That was awesome.
Remember Arachnophobia?
Anyway, that was my number 10.
All right.
Keeping it
You know
flowing.
what though, Tim? That is one that I was intrigued by the trailer, didn't make it out to the theater to see, have passed by it a couple times when it's popped up on like the Hulu home screen, but I'm going to watch it now. I appreciate
dug
the vote of confidence there.
Unfortunately, it's on my blind spots too, and the reason is because I liked the first one, Murder on the Orient Express, and was
Did I
just
say Midnight on the Orient Express? What an idiot!
what I say.
No, I said
he
I
said
Midnight on the
Midnight.
He said
Orient Express.
Midnight.
Like an
No,
idiot.
He confused Midnight Express and Murder on the Orient
I
Express.
did.
into
I really-
one
I did.
title.
I did not like the second one that came out last year,
We're writing it.
and I just was like, okay, I'm good. So I'm with Chris that like, oh, someone whose taste I usually align with likes it. Maybe I'll give it a try. So there you go. Number 10.
Number 10.
All right. I'll kick off my list with one of 2 or 3 horror or horror adjacent type movies. This one is the only one on the list that actually is full on horror, though I do have a bunch in my honorable mentions. I was very excited for this based on all of the festival buzz that it was getting. Plus, I had seen this director's first movie, also a Shudder film called Terrified. He's an Argentinian filmmaker, and that movie is one of the better, just sort of straight haunted house, like scary ghost movies that I've really ever seen, but certainly in the last 5 or 10 years. So when I heard kind of all the buzz about When Evil Lurks, I was like, all right, cool, and this is coming on Shudder, like awesome, I'll get to watch it at home. Wasn't really very clear on what the plot was, other than just something about possession. It's an interesting mashup of like possession / zombies in a weird way. What I liked about it is like it's immediately part of the lore of the towns and the people. Like it's well known that people can get possessed almost like a sickness, and it's well known that you need to hire professionals to get rid of the body, otherwise that possession can spread. And so like in a very short amount of time in the opening of the movie, it sets up the reality of this world, and then it plays by those rules for the rest of the movie. And it has some of the most sort of either gross or brutal scenes in it. And it's one of those movies where you go, they're building to this, but they're not going to show it, are they? Are they really going to show it? And then they fucking do.
They
and
do.
you're like, oh! And it so it builds dread. It builds these great sort of moments in the movie to these insane sort of mini climaxes. And it never cheats you by not showing it or by not going far enough. And it's just really nihilistic because it ends in just such a dark way. And it's not, there's not a glimmer of hope for any of these characters, but it's the second home run for this director. It's, probably the best horror movie I saw all year. And I see a lot of them. But it stuck with me for days. And there's moments in that movie that are like, just like embedded now in my brain. And that's probably not a good thing for my psyche. But it was great. It was great filmmaking. So When Evil Lurks is my number 10.
I agree. It's my number 6.
Ooh,
Oh,
We got
okay. My
crossover.
bad. I
Love
didn't
it.
offer it up.
No. It's
I
fine.
just started talking, and
You perfectly encapsulated it.
You want to talk about it now, Tim?
I'll just quickly say Chris nailed it, and I think the thing that really hits home is that just when you don't think they're going to go there, they go there, and it's jarring. It is jarring, and it does stick with you.
and it feels like a lot of it was done practically. Like it doesn't look CGI in any of the very graphic things that happen, and it's wild, like how they pull it off.
Yeah. And it's just creepy. It's really creepy and really well done. So it came in high for me because I was very, very surprised by it.
Yeah, it was a great movie.
Who else is number 10?
Andrew.
So it would be my turn. And as I mentioned earlier, my 9 through 17 is interchangeable. In fact, I saw a movie last night that was the last real blind spot that I wanted to see beforehand. And it was like, do I make this 10 or 11? And I'll make it 11 because I think it's either much higher for you guys or it's not on any of our lists, and we can just talk about it in honorable mentions. So I'll just let that suspense lay there. Okay. And I'll say my number 10, which is Barbie. We'll just have a Barbie conversation now. I can't ignore the highest grossing movie of the year in that sense. I have no idea if it's on anybody else's list.
It's in my honorables.
It's in your honorables. Okay.
Yep.
I can't ignore the movement that it was and how it paired with another movie that I'm sure will come up today, created like a box office event over the summer. I also think it's actually a pretty good movie. And what Ryan Gosling decides to try and do in this movie succeeds. I think it's actually somewhat overshadowed how good I think Margot Robbie is. I do think like the controversy with the Oscars, and I don't even know if it's controversy. I like the 5 directors that were nominated, but I did think there was like 7 worthy of 5 spots, and Greta Gerwig got left out.
She insists upon herself.
And so she can insist on a writing nomination if she can. I think there's good direction in that movie. I think there's an entire portion of that movie with Will Ferrell.
What does that even
mean? There's an entire portion of when they go to real life and the CEO of Mattel gets brought in that I'm like, this all sucks. But then when they get back to the satire in Barbie Land, I was like, okay, I'm enjoying the joke. Now we're back. Yeah. And there's literally a part during what, in my mind, was the ballad of the year in I Am Ken, or I'm Just Ken by Ryan Gosling. There's literally a cutaway to Will Ferrell and a bunch of corporate execs that you just fast forward through that part on YouTube every time. It's the only thing that keeps pulling me back from this being much higher on my list. I still think it's a fun movie, and it's a rewatch that my wife and I have done a couple times. And yeah, I at least wanted to. I had to make sure it was on my list in this stretch from 9 to whatever. But Barbie, number 10.
All right, yeah. I mean, it was on my honorables. I think I had the pleasure of seeing it with Tara, Connor, and Katie. And Connor and I really thoroughly enjoyed it, even though it hits obviously more home and hits harder for women. I think in the beginning, I was like, oh my God, this is really just beating me over the head with men are bad, women are great, which is fine. I mean, but it is bad, quite frankly, bad. But it gets more subtle as the movie goes on. And it finds its footing a little bit more. And while it's one of the few moments that while her character is forgotten later in the movie towards the end, America Ferrera's speech had every woman in the theater in tears. It had me choked up. Like, it's just
like you said, every woman in the theater.
Right. Yes. Thank you.
Well done, Tim. Set that up. I was glad to see.
I wanted to keep with the misogyny theme. So
yes, there we go.
Patriarchy, Tim. To keep with that theme.
Right.
The Ferrera speech, I thought as it was happening, okay, they're going to give her an Oscar moment, and I actually thought, like you said, Chris, I thought she nailed it, and it's why the weird thing about the Academy and the reaction to it, and then it's like they got a supporting nom out of this too. Like, they actually overachieved. I just thought, and this will come up later in the show, I thought there was some late entrance into that I know a lot of people that saw Barbie didn't see some movies that
Sure, yeah.
got nominated for Best Director.
Absolutely. But also,
yeah.
And I know Margot Robbie wasn't nominated, and there was like a lot of just obviously shock and outrage about that. I will say it's overshadowed by the showiness of some of the other roles. And it's weird because it's a Barbie movie. She's just amazing. Like, she was the perfect choice to play that. Like, is there anyone that like encapsulates the, sort of perfection in at least physical form, but then she brings the emotion to it as she's discovering herself, that I just think, when I think back to the Fox News movie and her character, and I, Tonya, she is fantastic in everything that she does. And so, it would have been great if there was room for her to be nominated. But I do think that the 5 women that were incredibly strong. So, you could look at it either way.
Yeah. So Barbie, my number 10.
Barbie.
Gavin. Me, Blackberry was a movie that I didn't expect to like. We've had a couple. Air is another one.
Air was fun.
We've had movies that just seemingly came out of nowhere in terms of why is this getting a feature film. Tetris was out.
Tetris.
Glenn Howerton may have gotten robbed of an Oscar nomination. And I can't believe I actually believed. I'm saying that. Like,
Dennis.
It's the Dennis system always works.
Fantastic performance. He's not Dennis. He's fully in character. And every time on screen, it's like, I fucking love this guy. The story kind of goes in a direction that, even though I know the basics of what happened, wasn't really expecting certain things to turn out the way they did. And apparently there's a limited series where they add in a whole bunch of footage that I think probably should have been kept in the movie. That's why it's only 10.
So wait, are they going to do like the Hateful Eight, where they're going to expand it into a series?
It's an AMC Plus. You can watch the limited series. I haven't had a chance to check it out.
Okay.
In the course of the movie, there's time gaps where it's like you might have wanted to fill some stuff in.
I see. Okay.
It may help understand what happens towards the end. I think if that wasn't it might have been a little bit too long, but at the same time, it was probably necessary. So it took something that was really, really good, brought it down to number 10.
Cool. That was another one that was like, I probably should watch this.
I said it for about 5 weeks. Like, I'm going to watch it now. I was like, thank God. I'm glad
it's
I did.
in my honorables. Cool. He's great. You're 100% right, Kev. He is fantastic. And it blew me away because I just, for the first 15 minutes or so of him, you can't get Dennis out of your head. And then he makes you get Dennis out of your head. And that is the mark of somebody actually really poured themselves into a character.
Absolutely.
So my 2 cents on Barbie. Barbie, not Barbie. Blackberry.
Let's bring it back to Barbie.
So I worked
Black Barbie.
Yes, I'm Black Barbie. That's
the Black or the Barbie.
The rails and how they go off.
They're just sort of like they're bending a little bit, Andrew.
Yeah,
they're not off yet.
We're on a bridge, and hopefully we don't go full off.
We're not going off. I promise.
When I was in my early 20s, I worked at Costco selling cell phones, and then I worked at Best Buy selling cell phones, and that was like I was in that industry for a while before I decided to actually go to school and pursue my now career. Like I think my perspective of this movie, the checkpoints that it hits of like, oh, here's when this BlackBerry when BlackBerry takes over. Like my second cell phone was that brick with the trackball on the side, the wheel on the side. And then I remember when BlackBerry Bold came out and how innovative you can go on the internet and check sports scores and like all the sales pitches that they were doing for BlackBerries. I remember being in the training sessions of like your thumbs are your styluses. And so then I also remember when the Apple, like, so you haven't seen it yet, Chris, but I'm going to assume you know that.
The story.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure that. Yeah,
Hey, Chris, have you existed the past one?
I had a BlackBerry for my my CEO of Henry Schein when he like bought up all the remaining BlackBerries because he never wanted to give it up. And so when we got work phones at Schein, it was a BlackBerry. So I had the one with the ball in the front, where basically when you did go on the internet, it looked like, Windows 3.0. It was just,
Did you have
shit
the
interface. Like the
BlackBerry
iPhone,
Storm?
obviously, as a consumer, made more sense to me. But yeah, I remember all that.
So to your point, though, like the iPhone, when it showed up and it was like a full touchscreen, there's a dramatic moment in the movie where like the staff of BlackBerry is watching the Apple announcement of the iPhone and they can't make sense of it. Like, wait a minute, they're going to get rid of the keyboard? That's why the BlackBerry matters. We took the computer keyboard and put it in your hand. Like, how are you going to type on it? Completely missing the point. And I remember like when we were being told like the Apple, like it's not going to be anything, like their focus was text and Apple's focus was data. And that's like, there's a line in the movie, I'm hoping I'm not giving away too much, where a character says like, we're going to go from like the number one phone of the world to the phone everybody had before they got an iPhone. And that it's so on the nose that it almost was like too much like, oh, the point of the movie. But it's also like, oh, you actually played that out, like how unaware they were of the oncoming train. And just my only thing about the Howerton performance is like this could have been so campy and over the top, and it's just, oh, you're just bad corporate guy that yells. But they actually add the emotional stakes of like what he puts into the company, what's at risk for him, what he actually does to further the company. He doesn't just look at the tech guys and the engineers as nerds and dorks and don't know anything. He's like, oh no, like you're geniuses, you just have no clue how to do business. And he partners with their genius to go to the next stage. So this is in that stretch, Kev, from 9 to 17. So I'm glad it got mentioned.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So do we want to do a snake draft? Well, snake list where Kevin goes next and we just go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. So, or we can just, it's Tim's turn. It's up to you guys.
What do you want to do, Tim?
Doesn't matter.
Okay. Kevin, you're up next.
Then I will go with my number 9 is American Fiction. This was
That's higher.
So that's much higher for Tim.
I will say this is a movie I expected to be much higher. This is one of those ones also where I had to wait fucking forever to see it. So I think that might have played a little bit into it at first. First, Jeffrey Wright, absolutely fucking amazing. Always love him. Always love him. I'm really happy that he's having this moment to shine. Sterling K. Brown, same difference. He's somebody. I also what's that fucking NBC show that people cry over?
This is Us.
Thank you. I never watched on Black. I knew him, I think, originally from
Adam White's.
Something about a house fire and a fucking crock pot or something. I don't know.
About, yeah. I remember him, I guess, Predators, that fucking disaster movie. Where, obviously the scene where he leaves the movie in a very strange way that still, I don't understand how it fucking happened. But watching him in his performance, he, I don't want to say revelation because I can't think of any other word for it. I didn't expect that out of him. So those two, but across the board, I think everybody is fucking amazing. I think possibly a part of the reason why this is also lower than I expected. I thought this was going to be more of a full-on comedic satire. Maybe not the Bamboozle direction, but possibly Hollywood Shuffle. I was hoping for more of that because that would have went. I think there was a great, because what the movie is, it's really a heartwarming tale where funny shit does occur. There is that one scene when he's writing the story at first, which absolutely fucking amazing.
Yeah, to me, like it kept
thinking about that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm thinking about.
It kept like getting to new sort of heights for, at least for me, as I was watching the movie. And that it was already good, and then that happened, I was like, oh shit, we're like fourth walling it a little bit here, or getting a little bit meta. Like, this is awesome.
It's absolutely perfect. At the end of it, I really loved it, but I don't think I'm ever going to watch it again.
Really?
That's why it's 9.
That's
And
fair.
Okay.
And Chris Wren, who's like, hey, I got it. If you want to check it out. And I was like, a part of me was like, yeah, I do want to see it just to, I think, more know if that's really how I felt. But after thinking for a bit, I was like, I saw the movie. So the rewatchability factor for me wasn't there.
Yeah. Wow.
But still good enough for number 9.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And so part of me, and I guess we'll probably talk more in detail about it later, but part of me was like, right now, my reaction to this is exactly the white author sitting around the table judging the book's reaction to this. I'm like, fuck that. But I know that I like much more about the movie than just like. I'm like, fuck, man.
So that is exactly why this is my this is like my number 4.
Yeah, I have it at 3.
Yeah, because the exact thought that you just had, Chris, was what I was thinking about after I watched this movie. Like, I'm like, this is a movie about pandering to an audience of fucking idiots who is pandering to an audience who's gonna love it. And I'm like, that's fucking amazing.
And I sat there and I went, fuck, this is gonna be high on my list, and I'm gonna look just like one of these fucking liberal white dickheads that are just eating it up. And I'm like, fuck, man. But I think the part of it that helps like rationalize it in my head is that like I genuinely cared about the family stuff. Like, it wasn't, all of the other sort of satire about it that Kev, you mentioned. And for you, that might like that was where you wanted the movie to go. I think I was just kind of like, I kind of knew that, like, oh, it's about a guy who kind of writes a book in that way. But like from the previews, it seemed like he did it more intentionally. Like, the movie really unfolds where he almost does it by necessity. And what I loved is like, and again, I should shut up because I know we're going to talk about it later, but like, I love that
now it's on it's on both of your lists. So
yeah, I love that.
Right,
like,
so we can talk about it now a little bit.
When he finally gets to sit with Sintara and he realizes like, okay, we're actually on the same page. She's just been more clever about recognizing up front what she needed to do in order to garner the audience. I was like, okay, like there's a lot going on here. There's a lot to say. I hate that like I'm white and I like this movie because I just feel like I'm literally the people that they were referring to sitting around that table going, oh, fuck is the best book of the year. It just literally captures the black experience. And I'm just sitting there going, this movie was awesome. Like, I just really was entertained by it. And the acting is brilliant.
Laughs in your face. It laughs in your face.
And it still was undeniably a movie that I was like, I got to put this high on my list because I love it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
This is my number 12, 11. It could be my 9 at this point. Wow. Like, it's one of those honorable mentions that I really like, right?
It's so funny that the two white, like
yeah. Yeah.
It's so typical. What the fuck? We fell into the trap, Tim. We did it.
We did. We did
exactly what that movie said we were going to do.
I knew I was going. And I said, as soon as this credit started rolling, I'm like, fuck, you got me. You got me. I'm a fucking character of myself.
So let me ask this. How did you guys see it in a theater or you see it at home?
I bought it on Amazon the second I knew that it was available because I wasn't going to be able to make it out to the theater.
Okay.
Yeah,
I went out opening day.
Purchased it
down here.
I saw it in a theater, Kevin. I don't know how your experience was, but the jokes that are laughed at and who's laughing at them, I've heard a lot of different experiences that, like, the moments of the movie that white people, we'll call it, are laughing at or being or they're the butt of the joke, and then they're laughing in the movie is how a lot of people have experienced it.
That was not
at
me,
it,
by the way, guys.
well, so I want to give Chris and Tim a bone here because you guys, obviously, we've shared our love of Chappelle's show in the past. And Chappelle has gone on record that the biggest frustration for why he left the show was that the whole point of that show, within the jokes that were being made, outside of just being like outrageously funny, it wasn't just like laughing at white people or just making white people laugh. Like, no, like I'm telling a joke for black people that white people are going to miss, but like the people that actually get it will see the humor in like, oh, they don't get it. And I think that's this movie for me to an extent, that like, if you get what the satire is, it's even more clever. At least that the half of the movie that is satire, that you end up with that reaction. And look, I have the exact same reaction. It's just not as high for me. I think the reason it's not as high is more some script structure where I'm there for the satire for an extended period. Then you hit me with some family drama. Like what happens to the Tracy Ellis Ross character is so jarring that I'm just like, I was laughing really hard 5 minutes ago, and now this happens.
Even the first part of their conversation was
right, like they're sitting there having lunch.
It was very like
bang.
quick banter, and you're like, this is like how two really smart brothers and sisters would like talk to each other, you know, just like ripping each other, and then all of a sudden that happens. You're like, fuck, man, where's this movie going?
It becomes Manchester by the Sea suddenly, and like then it
that movie's hilarious, by the way.
Right, all the comedy that you find in that movie. What are we talking about? House fires? Anyway,
Did you rate it 4 out of 5 alarms, Chris?
Oh my gosh! So I think just it's more of a balance, and this is where first-time screenwriter, first-time director Cord Jefferson, who I think does an admirable job for a first time. But you see the like, oh, you could have blended or leaned more way than the other. It felt like two movies in one. I enjoyed both separately. Together, there was a balancing act that didn't work for me completely. But again, it's 12 out of all the movies I saw this year. So I enjoy it.
Yeah, I do think that, Kev, to your point, Jeffrey Wright holds the movie together. So there is that sort of that disconnect between the two sort of paths that this movie could go down, and they try to mash together. You are just so invested in him that like, no matter what happens and no matter what tone it takes or how it shifts, like as long as he's there, you're in it, and it doesn't take you so far out of it that you start to go, all right, what am I watching?
The endings, I'm still weeks later wrestling with the ending because I think it's fine. I'm still like, okay, so that's the direction you went with it. Like
you mentioned Chappelle, it's like the Tron sketch.
It kind of is. Where, yeah,
simply known as.
So okay, so that was Kevin's number 9, and correct. When we get to it, it was your 4 and your 3.
Yep.
My number.
I'm whiter, Tim.
There you go. You have a higher white balance than Tim does.
I mean, to be fair, you did tell us about your day of getting pampered and being annoyed about it.
That's true.
So speaking of great white men, how about Matt Damon and Ben Affleck? I will go with Air for my number 9.
White saviors.
White saviors. Now, the funny thing about this is like, I know the story.
Mm-hmm.
There was no stakes whatsoever in this movie. This could have been a documentary. I've read the book. I've read the multiple books about the 1984 shoe deals and what Nike, where they were. I've seen multiple documentaries. We have there's a whole speech that Matt Damon gives that is like, you're going to be this, you're going to do all these great things, almost like he predicts or speaks Michael's greatness into existence. And it's like, this is nonsense. However, I'm wearing a Nike hat. I'm wearing Nike shorts. Like this was speaking to me specifically. I enjoyed, they made a point, if you had talked to Affleck, they made a point of going and getting Viola Davis to play Michael's mom. And a part of that was that Michael Jordan was like, if anyone's going to play my mom, it's going to be Viola Davis. Yeah. And she gets a speech at the end that, again, is nonsense. That she was like, he's going to make all NBA. He's going to do this. Like, Mrs. Jordan had no idea what all NBA was back then. Had no idea what any of these specific terms were, but she did. She was the one that negotiated the first ever deal that changed sports, advertising and sports, name, image, and likeness forever. So it's almost as if like a thing that I obviously have made a career out of and have invested in. And as far as basketball is concerned, this was a superhero origin story for me.
Sure, yeah.
And I very, very much enjoyed it. So Kevin's laughing.
It was entertaining as hell. It really was entertaining. A couple things. Michael is sort of like, they reference him and he's sort of like shown from the back. It reminds me of, again, the quote, to go back to the Chappelle show, when Charlie's doing the E! True Hollywood Stories and it's like the back of Eddie's head and he's like, hey, what's up, fellas? Like, it just, yeah, right. So that was a little bit weird. But it's something that I think a few really good either series or documentaries that I've seen this year have done, which is, even though you know absolutely what happens and you absolutely know that Michael Jordan signs with Nike and then creates Air Jordan, like all of it, Jumpman and everything, like, you know, the story, it still ends up feeling like, oh my God, are they going to get him? Like you sort of lose yourself in that, that chase. And, I thought that if nothing else, it accomplished that, while being some funny, some entertaining. I enjoyed that movie. It was in my honorables.
So this is where I want to ask you guys, this is where I'll be the young one here, because Nike was a running shoe back then. And Michael's even said, like, I wanted to sign with Adidas. They were playing with the 50-point lead and they fumbled the ball. Like they absolutely missed on their pitch. And while there was obviously a larger commitment from Nike than any other shoe company came at Michael with, Michael has talked about how he was like blown away by the pitch that Nike came with compared to Adidas. Was there, like, how did you guys back in 1984 like receive any of this? Like, it was like, oh, they're giving a rookie his own shoe before he's ever played.
I don't know how old you think I am. I was 5.
You were 5. Okay, so that's
I'll take 7.
You guys did a countdown of 1985 movies.
Tim, go ahead with this.
No, go ahead, Kev.
I would say I'm 77. I'm easily the one that was oldest. Somewhat of age. I knew what was going on. We didn't care about sneakers in suburbia.
I was lucky if I got Keds, and my mom bought those for me.
That wasn't a real issue. I don't know.
You go to school and you bust the Browns.
But hey, don't hate. But obviously, when you think about the quote unquote hood, or you want to say inner city urban areas, it was important to look good. Adidas was the obviously Run DMC alone. Adidas was the thing you want to be wearing. Jordan comes out, changes the game on different fucking levels. It's fucking amazing. And I would say probably late 80s is really when I felt, Nike was a huge deal where we lived. It just wasn't like that. We didn't care about the fact he was a rookie that got a contract.
Well, that's when sneaker wars really started to be a thing, because Reebok came out with the pump. And
that was probably the biggest thing, honestly, in white suburbia.
You remember the Robinsons that had the cartridge that you had to use to pump up?
Yes.
Those things were crazy. I had the pump, but I was jealous of the one kid that had the Robinsons. I was like, fuck, man, those got a cartridge. Come on.
And that is Chris' origin story right there. He's like, I'll never do manual labor ever again.
Jesus Christ.
I'm going to be a CEO. I'm never fucking doing manual labor again.
So, Air, my number 9.
Air, number 9.
Look, I do think that while some creative liberties are taken with they create a fake underdog story and embellish a little bit on like how big of a chance they were making. And and because we know what Michael Jordan became, the stakes are just not existent. I do think they do a good job of emphasizing how absurd it was. I was entertained.
The idea of not showing Jordan's face, I think it worked for me because any actor would have failed.
Yeah, it would have taken you out of it more than that.
Yeah.
And listen, Affleck's hair deserves an award just on its own.
Jason Bateman's fucking
Jason
amazing.
Bateman's good. Yeah,
he's great.
And again, as someone who has 6 pairs on a shelf in his bedroom right now, the introduction of the Jordan 1s, the Air Force 1s were, I felt it. And then when they added the Jumpman logo, when they created it in the postscript, again, this spoke to me personally. So I'll take it. My number 9.
All right. My number 9. My number 9 is a franchise that just keeps going and going and going. And with the exception of 2, which was an absolute misstep, and of course, because of John Woo, who I don't understand why he's considered like one of the greats in terms of action directing, because Broken Arrow was atrocious. I mean, I know that probably, listen, I'm being xenophobic because the movies that he actually made in Hong Kong are far better than the movies he made for the US and the US audiences. Chow Yun-Fat is far better in those roles than anyone that he brought into the movies that he made here. But it's an utter misstep. But Mission Impossible continues to just keep operating at an insanely high level. Fallout was just balls to the wall when that came out, like to the point where you were like, holy shit, like this is crazy. And it went a little bit too far on the just relying on chance. I think they pull that back a little bit. They introduce a threat that is absolutely very real and of the time in terms of unchecked AI power. And the fallacy.
Sorry, to that point, the movie got delayed. So they were not up to the moment. They were
kind of ahead of it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the fallacy of thinking that you can be in control of it. The set pieces are just top notch as always. Tom Cruise just continues to blow me away in obviously the stunts and the action, but also in the quiet moments. He's always been a good actor that was a great movie star. And the characters, the love that, those kind of the main characters that are still together have for each other with Ving Rhames and Simon Pegg and Rebecca Ferguson. The introduction of some of the new folks, like it just continues to feel like it's not running out of steam. Even though box office wise, it's probably the worst performing of the last few, which is unfortunate.
There are reasons for that.
I was going to say a week later, an event happened. Oppenheimer and Barbie came out.
And it's also
he didn't move it for IMAX. That really killed it.
Yep.
Do you think it would have mattered, Kev? Because the following weekend,
if you had that extra week, it wouldn't have made probably the 1 billion that you'd hope for nowadays, but it would look a lot better.
Okay, I'm going more radical with it. The thing should have been out like 2 months earlier.
Well, it should have been out like a year earlier.
True, but Top Gun came out, and that's why the Cruise was fine releasing it the following year.
I would have put it out like Memorial Day weekend. That to me, that movie felt like it would have had legs, and you wouldn't have lost audience to Barbie and Oppenheimer a week or two later. So I think it was poor choice of opening, to your point, Andrew. But that doesn't mean that it wasn't fucking awesome. Like I saw that in the theater and I was like, holy shit, they did it again. They made this fucking movie that just keeps escalating and escalating and escalating, and amazing action and set pieces and crazy stunts. And then I watched it at home and Tara was like, I don't want to fucking watch this. I'm like, come on. I was like, she's like, I haven't even watched like the last 2. I was like, you saw Fallout like in the background while I was watching on TV once. She was like, fine, put it on. And within like a half an hour, I could see her actually watching a movie versus playing Candy Crush while she's occasionally checking in. And by the end of the movie, she's like, holy shit, that was good. I was like, yes, it was. So anyway, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, my number 9.
It's a good one. It's a good one because I remember seeing it in the theaters with you. and I hadn't seen the last two in the theater. I hadn't gone to see any in the theater in a while. And when we walked out, I was like, wow, that was actually really, really good.
When you get Chico to go out to a movie theater, you know that it's probably a big movie.
Yeah.
And so like the last three, so Ghost Protocol. Oh no, what was the one before Fallout? Was that
Rogue Nation?
Rogue Nation. Rogue Nation, Fallout, and Dead Reckoning have all, actually Ghost Protocol too, have all been on my top 10 for like the past 4 or 5 years.
It's the rare franchise that just keeps getting better, you know?
Yeah.
And again, honorable mention for me, the part one of it all, the submarine scene.
They actually removed it.
Oh, I'm staring at Letterboxd, but they have part one. It's a good thing that they removed it.
Now that it's up on streaming, it's just referred to as Dead Reckoning, and I think they're going to change the title for the next one to be something different.
Which that's Avengers rewriting, which is good because it was supposed to be Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2, and they obviously went a different direction. The way I grade action movies is less about a need to make sense and a need for I want to say my brain is off, but I'm very much like, did you see that?
Yeah.
And Tom Cruise is has 9 of the top 15 did you see that moments of the last 10 years. I don't know how you feel about this, Chris, because I don't know if this is on anybody else's list, but having really fallen in love with Top Gun Maverick the way I did, and how much heart he's asked to put into that story, to then go to this, I couldn't take Maverick out for part of it, where the did you see that was still there. Don't get me wrong, but it's why I couldn't connect to it as much, so I don't know how you feel about that.
I think part of that too, to the whole idea of just kind of how things have screwed up the schedules of all these movies, there probably would have been more time in between the movies had they released at their normal times. But with Tom Cruise and his franchises, I'm pretty able to sort of separate and jump in and out of the characters. It was weird it was actually took a little bit to get back into Maverick because of the 30-year gap between the first one and the second one. Though once you sort of get over the awkwardness of sort of seeing him in that role again, it feels right. Ethan Hunt, I've been along for the ride for the first one, the De Palma one came out in 1996, and it's 2023. He made it through the Limp Bizkit one. Yeah, he did. Well, that was 2. That was the piece of shit John Woo one, where they do a ballet on motorcycles and doves fly into the sky. It's unbelievably bad. But
his metaphor.
But yes, no, I can immediately be with him in this role.
Okay. It's funny. I think Ethan Hunt actually helped me because I love Fallout. Like you mentioned, the last 3 Mission Impossibles. He's disappeared from character for me. He's Ethan Hunt in Edge of Tomorrow. He's Ethan Hunt in Oblivion. He's just, that American-made Jack Reacher. He very much has become just a stuntman for me, that I'm ready for you to do crazy stuff. And then when he goes to see
Rooster?
When he goes to see Iceman.
Okay.
And in Maverick, and the heart throughout the back and forth he has with Rooster throughout that movie, I'm very that caught me. And then going into this, I was like, okay, he's Ethan Hunt again. And it took a minute. That a lot of the stuff that happens in between each action set piece, I just was like, all right, give me the action. I'm ready for the next part. Now I want to emphasize, it's fucking nuts what he has to do in this movie. The train sequence, as repetitive as it gets, I wanted it to keep going. Go ahead, let another car fall off the cliff. I want to see how hard this keeps going.
A cage of lions falls down now.
And we saw it during the pandemic when he rides the motorcycle off the cliff. And it's why I have to always catch myself with trying to analyze it. Be this dude literally rode a motorcycle off a ramp for my entertainment. I have to always make sure I'm reminded of that all these stunt people and their CGI stunt doubles that exist. And this guy literally was like, they did it 8 times. They did that take 8 times. Like, I need
what's
that
it
to
like
be.
to be?
Can you imagine how many hours that had to take because they had to wait for him to fucking land with the
Right.
parachute or whatever?
Chris, the craziest part, it took 2 days to film. So he went to bed that night, woke up, was like, all right, ready to ride a motorcycle off a cliff.
Like, that's one of those
Right.
things where you go, if you do it once in your life, okay,
I'm
that
good.
was a blast.
Yeah.
I'm never doing that again. He's like, yeah, no, I can keep going.
Yes.
How fucking
Um,
manic do you have to be? Like, honestly, how much fucking dopamine do you need in your system?
That's like Peter North going right again. Just like no break in between, just right away. I don't even think Andrew knows who I'm talking
I
about.
Do you? Oh God, that's gonna kill me.
He is younger, guys.
That's fucking amazing. Don't Google.
I'm
Yeah,
literally
don't.
Googling it now.
No,
What happened?
no.
You definitely Google rope thrower.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Make sure Rosina doesn't look at your phone after that.
Okay, I see where that's going. I'm putting my phone away.
Yeah. But
yeah.
What's interesting about that to me is
He's a rope thrower.
this is. Do you know that he used to eat guys? Do you know that he used to eat bags of celery to make the ropes thicker
Oh, so it's
bigger
still on Peter North. Okay.
and more voluminous? Bags of celery.
Why? I don't know why I thought that was gonna be like. Do you know what that Tom Cruise used to? No, we've
No,
now. I've heard it. No, you're good. You're good.
What I'm interested in, because you mentioned like just sort of waiting to get to the next set piece. I felt like this was the one where there was a lot of emotion. There was more emotion because the stakes were higher for his team. And he says a few times, like, I don't accept that one of you may have to die in order to save the world. Like, I need to save everybody. So there's some heft there, but
I'll give it a
in any
rewatch.
case,
It's not
it was-
bad. I want to make it clear. This is not bad. It's one of there's some action stuff that came out this year. I don't know if another one's going to get mentioned, but like there are franchises that released chapters of their history, and I was like, I think Mission Impossible is my favorite of the sequels. That like this had the closest chance of getting onto my list this year. So I agree that it was a good time.